at least on pork projects. Republican Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, who just released his 2010 Wastebook today. Senator, welcome to the program. Do you believe that many people on both sides of the aisle are simply not getting the message that American voters sent in early November?
I think that's probably true. I would be in the precarious position to, from what I understand he put in there, was a property rights issue in terms of their mineral rights, not in terms of an actual earmark that costs the government money.
Okay, well, listen, we talk about earmarks in general, and then we can defend any of them, right? Most earmarks probably end up hiring somebody, right? If it's research, no matter how silly, there might be a scientist at the end of that. How do we define if there are positive spending programs that some would define as pork? Do any meet those characteristics for you?
Well, I think you have to step back and look at it. The Congress is supposed to work under the Constitution, and the idea that somebody would try to protect property rights is probably not a bad idea. It probably didn't need to be in this bill. And I don't know if it's going to cost anything ultimately or cost us as taxpayers something ultimately. The fact is what we should have is a very clean CR, except for what the military might need us to change over this couple of month period to allow them the flexibility with our defense.
Well, the vice president coming out and defending some earmarks. Listen to this.
If the question is, in order to keep the patient alive, we have to use a medicine we don't like, we may have to do it.
What do you make of those comments? He's basically saying in order to keep some people employed, we will have to spend federal money.
Well, I don't know. Was he talking about earmarks or was he talking about general spending?
Earmarks.
Well, in both regards, the best way to increase jobs and people having jobs and an opportunity for a job in this country is to downsize the role and size of the federal government. The private sector creates jobs that have significant economic multipliers on them. The federal government does not. And so that just shows you the misguided nature of the vice president.
Your team putting out the excellent Wastebook 2010. I tell you, Senator, this book continues to get larger and larger. I mean, there's some things in there that if I read them to my 7-year-old daughter, she wouldn't believe that they're real, but they are. $175 million for the upkeep of an unused monkey house. I mean, where do these come from? And more importantly, how do you find them?
Well, we scan everything that the federal government's doing. We're trying to scan all what the agencies are doing. But the point, this is just the 100 worst that we thought were outlandish this year, that the average American would say, you got to be kidding me. And the fact, where there's 100, there's 10,000. And the point is Washington has not yet gotten the fact that we need to live within our means, that we need to start making priorities about jobs, not about politicians, and solve the very real and urgent problem that's in front of us, which is our budget deficit and our debt, and the fact that that's being a negative drag on the creation of jobs rather than a positive one.
Now, listen, again, and many of them are very, very silly, but some of them, maybe the Neon Boneyard, who knows, maybe 5 people, were scheduled to be employed there, and that's a Nevada project, but it's got a high unemployment rate. Maybe a couple people were going to work there. Are you willing to have an unemployment rate that trickles up, even if it's the expense of the spending? If we cut spending, are you willing to accept an unemployment rate that might trickle up some?
I'm willing to direct federal government spending to what we have an obligation under the Constitution to do. And I think any spending outside of that, number one, it violates the spirit, if not the letter of our oath. And number two, it doesn't really do anything in the long term for the country. So you can rationalize earmarks all you want. What they are in base is, how do I make myself look good with the well-connected and well-to-do at home, and how does it help my reelection?
This continuing resolution, basically fancy D.C. speak for let's fund the government for another couple of months. Is this going to pass tomorrow?
Oh, I think so, and I think it's really important because for the first time in February, you're going to see the results of the election being applied to the rest of the budget for this year. And that's very important for us to start trimming and start getting our house in order.
Senator Tom Coburn, thank you very much, sir.
Brian,
thank you for putting out the Wastebook 2010. Endless fodder for TV News. Thank you, sir. Holiday sales jumping this